Ich war dabei, als das dritte Zeitalter der Menschheit begann, 10 Jahre nach dem interstellaren Krieg zwischen den Menschen und den Minbari. Das Babylon-Projekt, ein uralter Traum, war Wirklichkeit geworden. Um weitere Kriege zu verhindern, war ein Ort geschaffen worden, an dem Menschen und Außerirdische trotz aller Unterschiede friedlich zusammenleben können. Babylon 5 ist eine Anlaufstelle für Flüchtlinge, Schmuggler, Geschäftsleute, Diplomaten und andere Reisende aus den verschiedensten Welten. Sie leben umgeben von 2,5 Millionen Tonnen Stahl, mitten im Weltraum. Es kann ein sehr gefährlicher Ort sein, aber es ist auch die einzige und letzte Hoffnung auf dauernden Frieden. Wir schreiben das Jahr 2258. Dies ist die Geschichte der letzten großen Weltraumstation. Ihr Name ist Babylon 5.
It was the dawn of the third age of mankind, 10 years after the Earth-Minbari War. The Babylon Project was a dream given form. Its goal, to prevent another war by creating a place where humans and aliens could work out their differences peacefully. It's a port of call, home away from home for diplomats, hustlers, entrepreneurs, and wanderers. Humans and aliens wrapped in 2,500,000 tons of spinning metal, all alone in the night. It can be a dangerous place, but it's our last best hope for peace. This is the story of the last of the Babylon stations. The year is 2258. The name of the place is Babylon 5.
C'était l'aube du troisième âge de l'humanité, 10 ans après la guerre entre les Terriens et les Minbari. Le projet Babylone était un rêve qui s'était concrétisé. L'objectif était d'éviter une autre guerre en créant un lieu où humains et extraterrestres cohabiteraient dans le respect de leurs différences. C'était une escale, une seconde maison pour tous, diplomates, affairistes, innovateurs et vagabonds. Des humains et des extraterrestres dans une coque de métal de 2 500 000 tonnes, tournoyant, seul au cœur des ténèbres. Cet endroit pouvait être dangereux, mais c'était notre ultime espoir de paix. Voici l'histoire de la dernière station de type Babylone. Nous sommes en 2258. Cette station s'appelle Babylone 5.
It's an exciting environment to work in. Everybody's jazzed about it.
The special effects themselves are amazing. They said, "Do you mind being a lizard?" And I said, "No."
Roll, please. And action.
For nearly 30 years, since a certain starship first took us to imaginative new worlds, science fiction dramatic series have been an important part of television history. I'm proud to have been a part of that history. And tonight, I'm just as proud to introduce a bold new chapter in that story. It's an exciting, uniquely different series that could forever change the way you look at science fiction television. But don't take my word for it. Judge for yourself as we take you behind the scenes. We'll show you groundbreaking special effects and new, breathtaking achievements in makeup, sets, and costumes. You'll meet the composer, the producers, the cast, and the top science fiction writers who have combined their talents to create this fantastic new vision of the future. I'm Walter Koenig. Welcome to the making of Babylon 5.
How are we going to find this friend of Adira's?
I have a friend or two down here myself.
I take it these are not them?
Go!
The fact that this is Babylon 5 indicates just how perilous it is up here. That 1, 2, and 3 were sabotaged and destroyed, that 4 disappeared without a trace. And now this is 5.
It is 250 years into the future aboard a 5-mile-long, self-contained world encased in metal. Space Station Babylon 5 is an orbiting port of call precariously placed among the stars in neutral territory. Its goal? To try and keep war from breaking out between inhabitants of distant worlds.
Babylon 5 functions almost as a UN between 4 alien and 1 human civilizations, and they have located their ambassadors on Babylon 5 to try and work out their problems.
Many of these cultures have recently, or in the near past, have been at war.
We should have wiped out your kind when we had the chance.
What happened? Run out of small children to butcher?
You pig!
Let him go! Listen to me, Ambassador. Your time is come and gone. It's our turn now.
There are about 250,000 human and non-human inhabitants on Babylon 5. So there are all of these personal stories. In that sense, Babylon 5 is the naked city.
Of all things in life, are females not the finest?
On that, Larry, we can at least agree.
I've heard it described as Casablanca in the year 2257, and it really is like that.
We have traders and smugglers and spies and forged passports. It's a very rowdy environment.
How about you and me blow this joint and go play a little scan the sector?
To provide this colorful ensemble of characters with rich, powerful, and personal stories, legendary science fiction writers were enlisted as part of the Babylon 5 creative team.
We have gone back to people like Harlan Ellison, Dorothy Fontana, David Gerrold, and others who were on the original Star Trek, who made that show a success. Said, here's a new universe for you to play in.
In so many science fiction series that are out now, there are no faults and flaws. They're perfect heroes. Well, I don't believe in perfect heroes.
The idiosyncrasies of each of the characters on the ship is what's cool about it, because everyone's carrying a demon.
I mean, what's going on around here? We got a war breaking out in Ragash 3, pirates at work over here. You ask me, the universe is going to hell in a handbasket.
Michael Alfredo Garibaldi. He's the chief of security. He's been bounced around from station to station, and here I am for what I understand to be my last attempt at proving myself.
Would you really have killed me?
Yes, I would have, but I'm just as glad I didn't have to. The paperwork's a pain in the butt.
I play the kind of a guy who's a leader because he doesn't make a lot of speeches, but you just get the idea after a while that he's the one who you can count on. But Jeff's not above getting a little teed off or getting a little rough around the edges to make things work.
What a challenge that must have been to the great Narn military. Don't have the guts for a fair fight?
In another place, I would have you skinned alive for saying that.
There's a person part of Londo, and then there's the ambassador part of him, and they're very different people.
This is Venza, god of fools, and Lee, goddess of passion.
someone who has comic potentials and dramatic potentials within the same character. That's really what I hooked into and I love about him.
Since the original Babylon 5 two-hour movie, new characters have been added to make the action even more intriguing.
This is my first officer, Lieutenant Commander Susan Ivanova. Susan, Dr. Stephen Franklin, our new medical chief of staff.
A pleasure. We're honored to have you aboard.
We felt very strongly that what we needed for a second in command was someone who was very strong, very prepossessing.
She just doesn't take any, BS. Can I say that? Overreacting, Mr. Garibaldi. There could be any number of reasons for this communications anomaly.
Such as?
Computer error, magnetic pulse.
I checked that.
Well, maybe one of the ambassadors is trying to save a few credits again. Or perhaps it's what us Russian pilots used to call gremlins. I've done science fiction movies a lot, but I usually play, the stripper caught with an alien in my body and stuff like that.
It will take a strong-willed second-in-command to deal with a mysterious society of telepaths, for whom the human mind is an open book that only they can read.
Lieutenant Commander Ivanova.
Yes?
Talia Winters, licensed commercial telepath. I've tried to reach you 3 times, but I guess you've been busy. I figured I'd try the direct approach.
Your diligence is commendable. Anything else?
No, I just...
Then you'll excuse me, but I'm in the middle of 15 things, all of them annoying. Thank you for coming by.
It's a very scary organization when you figure that there's this one group of people who can tell what everybody's doing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Babylon 5's alien ambassadors now have their own assistants, who sometimes complicate matters.
And she's going to feed information to Jakar. She's going to be a foil for Jakar, but she takes him down a peg every chance she gets.
That hurt.
Ambassador, it was the only way to disable the pain givers.
And you didn't enjoy it in the least.
I didn't say that.
And if trying to keep order within this group isn't tough enough, the commander has one more thing to complicate his life.
Yes, I stopped sleeping on just one side of the bed, but only because you weren't there.
She has had this on and off again relationship with Commander Sinclair from way back in the academy.
Don't touch me unless you mean it.
But in the 23rd century, they still haven't gotten relationships down pat.
Cut, great. Well, on Babylon 5, nothing is as it seems. And there are some real surprises in store for the audience.
Up next, we'll show you how they create incredible visual effects in space without models and share the secrets that transform Babylon 5's human actors into very realistic aliens. Since movie making began and on through the 1980s, science fiction motion pictures and TV series have used what was then state-of-the-art technology to create fantastic new worlds, starships, and space battles. The process required motion-control cameras, intricate models, and thousands of hours to create sequences that lasted only a few moments on the screen. For their time, they were revolutionary. Now, a new special effects revolution is brewing, and Babylon 5 is the first series to take advantage of that revolution, producing amazing outer space scenes without models, without strings, and believe it or not, without cameras.
Because all the visual effects for Babylon 5 are entirely computer generated, there are no physical models. You can move all around them. They don't have to be mounted like a model does.
These are shots that you just could not do with models and cameras. Not that it would be expensive to do, you just couldn't do it.
One of the things that we've really tried to do is lose the computery feel.
Talented animators stretch the limits of a new state-of-the-art, which changes and improves daily.
Shoot the actress or actor, in this case the actress, in the cockpit mock-up on the stage, and then we'll bring it in and we composite it into our computer-generated chip.
Stand by Alpha Wing, ready to launch.
Even effects like laser blasts and matted-in backgrounds are now done with computer art.
I think that the results are a little better because it is a much easier way to animate and to see the flow of action. We're going to set the standard in a lot of this for a lot of other shows. So I don't think anyone else is working in 2D this way, and I don't think anyone's really doing 3D the way we're doing it here.
What's giving you production value are the people that are operating those machines. We're investing in the artist, not the equipment.
Most space battles look like a TV game. The thing that makes the type of computer-generated imagery that we're doing different is we're using filmmakers to do it. And we're all designers, we're all artists.
This is Commander Jeffrey Sinclair of Babylon 5 to raiding parties. Surrender your vessels or be destroyed.
We really wanted to create a more colourful looking universe.
Gotcha.
That sense of rich, multi-layered textures extends to every aspect of Babylon 5's production. For instance, set design is critical to creating the dramatic mood and believability that thousands of people actually live out here in space.
We try to get the idea that this is a place where people are living. It's a lived-in look. Things are used. Things are constantly under a state of repair. You know, basically we have about 16 standing sets. Those sets can become 38, sometimes 42, depending on the different dressing. This set is the central corridor, and this is one of our favorite sets because it becomes other sets as well. And sometimes in the same day we have to change this set over, like in 45 minutes. And so what happens is all these walls and stuff and these panels open up, and there's a whole other set waiting behind these walls. Also, the moody lighting, we're not lighting up everybody's faces. We don't want that kind of soap opera lighting. We've really come around with the whole lighting comes from the objects that are in the room.
We have created in what was an old assembly plant a new world of magic.
This place is marvelous.
The original Enterprise was an interesting ship. I think this is an interesting space station. There is an energy transfer from the surroundings onto the set that enlivens a show like this. This thing may take off any day now.
Spectacular special effects and ingenious sets have created a moody, magical atmosphere in which Babylon 5's characters will interact. Now they have to be dressed like they belong here.
I tried to flesh out the designs and create looks for each alien race that were very different and very complex. Lots of layers, lots of detail.
And so with each layer that you put on, you're putting on your character. You sit up a little straighter and your voice changes.
The illusion is almost complete. But how do they transform human actors into amazingly realistic aliens? And how is music from halfway around the world instantly transmitted to punctuate every episode of Babylon 5? Find out when we come back.
You're gonna like this. Here it goes.
When it comes to creating realistic alien beings to inhabit Babylon 5's bold new universe, state-of-the-art takes on a whole new meaning. Combining modern wizardry with ancient crafts, special effects makeup designers and artists turn their imaginations into creatures we've yet to meet.
Yeah, basically, every skin has to be hand-painted. There's really no way to speed it up.
These are also good with a little brown sugar and maple syrup in the morning.
The finished prosthetic masks, custom-made for each actor, are then painstakingly applied. The startling close-up result of this labor is well worth it.
When I look at myself and I have those red contacts in, I really see a reptile standing in front of me.
This is an important guy to be nice to. Unless you like your nose on upside down.
Each creation starts with a sketch, a small clay rendering, or even a 3D computer model. Some of Babylon 5's aliens are actually a combination of full-body makeup and mechanical animatronics.
This is Negrath, and he's the underworld boss. And these are the servo motors that control Negrath's head back and forth and side to side. And this is Russ Johnson here. And Russ actually plays Negrath, and his head, his eyesight is actually right here.
You wish to buy? Yes.
After shooting is completed for each episode, the scenes have to be edited together. Here, too, this series about the future uses the very latest evolving technology.
Babylon 5 is assembled in a supercomputer.
Our editing facilities are state-of-the-art, our audio facilities are state-of-the-art. All of this stuff adds up to being able to offer our producers and our directors choices.
We can make changes, we can pull up different takes. 3 years ago, we wouldn't have been able to do this.
What these allow you to do is spend more time in the creative process and less time in the mechanical process.
Even the unearthly musical score is achieved with futuristic global electronics. created and linked instantaneously from opposite sides of our homeworld.
I'm here in California. The orchestra is back in Berlin. They can use the latest technology, which connects me here to my studio back in Berlin through 6 digital telephone lines. Let's redo the section where we have the French horns. Today I write the music in my computer with my light pen, and then I hear it in the next second. Sometimes I think of myself as a sonic painter instead of a composer. Every episode is so much different that I score every episode really individually.
Up next, some very personal reactions to Babylon 5 from the people who work and play here.
I said, is there ever going to be a woman for Garibaldi in the first season? No. I was like, great, I quit.
I hope you've enjoyed this backstage look at the creation of a science fiction legend in the making. You know, apart from the fascinating characters, incredible special effects, makeup, costumes, and music, there's one more thing that really separates this show from anything else around. Its sense of fun.
I can show you my favorite thing in the whole universe. Okay, my second favorite thing in the universe.
Very often science fiction shows have a sense of being deadly serious about them. There are things in our show that are fall down funny.
The sex organs of Centaurs are much overused, I have suspect. Whereas the commander doesn't get much of a break at all.
Oh, well, that perked you up, didn't it? The sex life of Centaurs. Stay tuned.
They're very playful on this show. That's one thing I adore.
I was delighted to personally experience the genuine warmth, camaraderie, and enthusiasm of the Babylon 5 cast, crew, artists, producers, and writers. So delighted that before I knew it, I became a part of it and signed on board for a very different role in an episode that airs late in February.
Just 50 quarters to search. Good. That should help narrow it down. Anatomically impossible, Mr. Garibaldi. But you're welcome to try. Anytime. Anywhere.
I'm Walter Koenig. Thanks for joining me for this inside look at the making of Babylon 5.
Science fiction should point to the horizon and say, that's where we're going.
Everybody on the show was about how to do it. It was never about no.
You have the same emotions and everything, you're just an alien.
There is no button on the computer that says, cool shot.
You know, we were kind of the new kids on the block, so we were definitely out to prove ourselves. The hardest part was that techno babble.
We've created something that is lasting. It's a brand name now. It was a ball, man. You know, it's like you got to go to work every day with your buddies.
Minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6.
Babylon 5 came about through working on 2 different ideas for series. One was a vast, galaxy-spanning, huge show following the rise and fall of empires. The other show in the back of my head was about a small space station and people trapped in a tin can, as it were, having to deal with each other in a closed environment, both far in the future. And I realized, no, these are the same story. I love sagas. I grew up on Lord of the Rings, the Foundation books, and British television, which used a lot of long-term storytelling, and thought, why hasn't anyone done a real saga for American television? One book over a period of 4 or 5 years.
When he delivered the show to us, I read it, liked it very, very much, and attempted to put it together. And it was a very difficult sell.
You know, we felt that Babylon 5 had the chops and had the substance to sustain itself as a series. The studio felt a little bit more nervous because of the past reputations of science fiction.
But Joe and I, this has always been an uphill battle. It was an uphill battle to get the pilot made. It was an uphill battle to get the series made.
It took 5 years to find a home for Babylon 5.
We never gave up. We believed in it. And Warner's then supported the show. So that's the beginning.
I think that Joe came along at a time when people were ready for a different look on the future.
My thought was, we are not going to be perfect people. We'll bring to the stars with us our problems, our eccentricities, our prejudices. The context will be different, but we as humans remain the same. 200 years of evolution is not enough to really make a big change that way.
And I think the fact that the characters were flawed made them approachable to most people, because you can see in that character, yeah, I've done that, or I've had that problem, or I know somebody with those problems.
That was, to me, the greatest thing about doing the show, was to say, we're going to create a world that no one's seen before, and that's going to be really exciting.
So once you have the universe established, you then try and find the characters that reflect that universe. Michael O'Hare brought the classic leading man looks, but beyond that, there's a thoughtfulness to Michael's performance, to who and what he is. And the character of Sinclair is not a jingoistic military leader. He's a very thoughtful man, and Michael had that presence that he brought to the role. Claudia is very funny. She's a rogue, and the part she was called upon to play initially was a very staid, reserved Russian person, drawing on my own background for what that character was. And over the course of the season, Claudia kept nudging me toward making the character funny, and that humor began to emerge after a while.
Claudia was a jokester, and so was Jerry Doyle. And if you do scenes with those two, you know you're gonna have a lot of fun.
Garibaldi was always the guy that was going to be there to make sure that other people were okay or taken care of. He was a caretaker, and would sacrifice himself for others or the greater good, and that would truly make him happy.
When Andreas Katsoulis came in as Jakar, there was no one who even came close. He brought that charisma, that sense of great dignity, the fiery temperament that Jakar had to have. And I knew right off the bat that he was going to be our Jakar. Interestingly enough, he was sitting next to Peter Jurasik, who was coming in for Lando, and they were talking together and had that nice relationship going on from the beginning. With Mira, she had a quality of great dignity, a sense of presence that became a great addition to the show.
It wasn't just going to be another science fiction doctor, just come in, explain the techno-babble and leave. He was going to have real kind of a three-dimensional kind of a quality, emotional, he's very analytical, and yet there were some other qualities that were human about him.
He was like the Jiminy Cricket, giving, this kind of moral advice to Londo, which he didn't take it most of the time. He was forced into situations that made him more heroic than he ever dreamed of being, and lucky for him, it paid off.
The real ingredient that makes a television series successful is the writing.
I believe that you get to story from character. You find out, what does a person want? How far would they go to get it? How far would someone else go try and stop them? That creates a story. As a writer, I believe that the more you know your characters, the more the stories take care of themselves.
I think that the best year was the first year, because Joe really had to write some scripts. As far as an actor's concerned, he really had to write some scripts to really flesh out the character.
The great thing about Babylon 5 is we had very inspired writing that pointed us in a good direction, and we had producers that didn't really tie our hands. I mean, they certainly had their input and they had their ideas of what they wanted, but they were willing to give us a first shot at coming up with what the ships look like, what the shots should be.
He will plant something in an early episode that you forget about, and then you see the reason for him putting it in when you see the 9th or 10th episode pick up on it. And it works that way right through the entire 110 episodes.
And so there was always like these little, almost red herrings, or these little, MacGuffins that would be in a show, and we would think we know there's a grand plan here, we just have to trust it and do it.
I've never been afraid to try new things. And on Babylon 5, to make this show work, we had to try new things on a regular basis.
The CGI had never been done on that scale for television before, but we figured it would work, let's do it.
There's a lot of innovation between the computer graphics, which really had never been done before. We did desktop compositing. So it was a show where we had a lot of freedom to, both creatively and technically, to produce the show, and that was really pretty exciting.
CGI was just at the beginning. People did not believe that you could make CGI in a realistic form, and we had to prove that.
We did a 50-second shot of taking a spaceship from infinity right by camera and following it into the mouth of the space station, which would have been impossible to do using traditional motion control and miniature techniques at the time.
The visual effects were driven by the story, and they weren't just incidental, they weren't just filler, we weren't just slugging in something that showed a passage of time.
The makeup effects were also very ambitious for a television series. We had 3 main characters who were in heavy prosthetics, and to create a sense of a true point of call for trade and commerce, we had to have literally hundreds of people in prosthetics every day.
In Joe's scripts, you really have to pay attention to the emotional spine of what the story's about or the character and how it evolves. So we kind of had this credo going into it that we weren't just going to do like foreheads, like a forehead appliance. We thought that was like, just a little too obvious and had been done a lot. And we thought we could do better, so we kind of wanted to do whole characters where the whole back of the head, the face, and everything was kind of covered. By the time we came, 3rd or 4th episode, all of a sudden we had maybe 2 or 3 days to get a character ready. So inevitably we ended up putting a forehead on this character because it's really all we had time to do. You have to do it all from scratch, and it's very labor intensive, and even working 24 hours a day, there's only so many hours in the day to produce this work. So we gained a tremendous amount of respect for the work that had been done on previous shows like Star Trek once we were in the trenches and knew what it was like. I think it's one of the things that we do try to pay attention to when we design any characters, though, is that they're ultimately part of the storytelling process. They aren't, I'd like to think these are great, just, cool designs, but they can't just be designs, that serve themselves. They have to serve the story also.
When we won the 2 Hugo Awards, the competition was shows like Apollo 13, the Star Trek shows, Toy Story, and to win against that kind of competition, it has to be very gratifying. It certainly was to me, it certainly was to Joe and all of us that worked on the show.
I just don't think in our wildest dreams when we first started doing the show that we ever thought we'd win an Emmy for it. Maybe we secretly hoped for it, but I don't think we ever thought it was a reality. And so just getting nominated to begin with was amazing to us. It was actually probably more of a shock than anything. When we won it, we were absolutely just, dumbfounded. We were totally amazed.
I was asked to speak at MIT about 3 years ago, and they said there are 3 seminal American science fiction television series. The first Twilight Zone, the first Star Trek, and Babylon 5. We all represented paradigm shifts, and being a big Rod Serling fan, that was a big moment for me.
We came together and we made something that was greater than the individual parts.
I think Babylon 5 was well accepted by the critics and the fans and the viewers because there wasn't a lot on television like that in the time. There certainly wasn't anything like that on that level of action. The scope of battles and space scenes and what you could do with the ships wasn't as possible prior to Babylon 5.
So you can't just pin it down to any one thing. To me, any one thing would be the whole thing. It was just a lot of good friends. I miss the crew, I miss the cast, I miss the banter, I miss the energy, and it's opened up a lot of other doors for me. I've been able to, hang with the NASA astronauts and have been, in the space shuttle on the launch pad. That's kind of cool stuff.
The fans are constantly saying that the stories affected them on a very personal level. And I think that Joe has a great way of doing that, is taking a story, putting it in the future that relates to right now and what's a lot of people are going through, and people connected to it.
I think the message what anybody would want in today's world, in this present day, is that we're all different types of people, and we all have to learn to live with each other. Even though the problems will arise, there's always some kind of a solution.
I think what made Babylon 5 work, really, at the end of the day, is the fact that it took the genre seriously, that it had a 5-year arc, which had never been done before in American television, and that it played with myth and said to people, you have choices, consequences, and responsibility. The show is about hope to a large extent. It boiled down the series to its very finest points. It says that one person can make a difference. One person can change the world, but you must choose to do so. You must make the future or others will make it for you. And that story, that sense of hope and optimism, I think is very important to the success of Babylon 5 across the world.
Accessing file. Subject: Commander Jeffrey Sinclair. A man of strong convictions, Babylon 5 Commander Jeffrey Sinclair takes his job very seriously. Although he must contend with squabbling delegates and diplomatic responsibilities, Sinclair's primary concern is for the safety of the station and its inhabitants. Born on the Mars colony, Sinclair is a decorated fighter pilot and a survivor of the legendary Battle of the Line. During this battle, Sinclair's ship was captured and he was interrogated by the Minbari. Sinclair says he has no knowledge of the 24 hours between his capture and release. End file. Subject: Lieutenant Commander Susan Ivanova. A native of St. Petersburg, Russia, Lieutenant Commander Susan Ivanova serves as second in command on Babylon 5. In addition to handling day-to-day operations, she is also an excellent pilot and leads Star Fury squadrons in defense of the station. Ivanova has been forced to cope with hardships that have plagued her personal life, including the suicide of her telepathic mother, which she blames on the Psi Corps. Although strong-willed and career-driven, Ivanova does occasionally open up to reveal her Russian sense of humor. End file. Subject: Security Chief Michael Garibaldi. An old friend of Sinclair's, Michael Garibaldi was hand-picked by the commander to act as Babylon 5's Chief of Security. Born in New York City and a veteran of the Earth-Minbari War, Garibaldi has been a security officer most of his life. Garibaldi comes from a troubled past and has had recurring battles with alcoholism. While his methods and sense of humor may be unorthodox, Garibaldi knows how to handle his demanding position and gets results. No one knows more about what goes on around Babylon 5 than Garibaldi. End file. Subject: Dr. Stephen Franklin. A graduate of Harvard University, Dr. Stephen Franklin turned to medicine after an alien doctor saved his father's life. Before joining Earth Force during the Earth-Minbari War, Dr. Franklin hitchhiked around the galaxy, exchanging his services for transport. Dr. Franklin will do anything to save a patient's life, and his strong sense of ethics often causes friction with his superiors. When it comes to xenobiology, however, Dr. Franklin is unsurpassed in his field, making him an invaluable addition to Babylon 5. End file. Subject: Talia Winters. Telepath Talia Winters never knew her parents, having been raised by the Psi Corps since she was 5 years old. Classified as level P5, Talia became a commercial telepath, and Babylon 5 represents her first solo assignment. Talia sells her services to visiting dignitaries and businessmen, occasionally helping out Commander Sinclair in negotiations. Like many telepaths, she has had difficulty developing relationships with others due to their apprehension toward her special abilities. End file. Accessing file. Subject: Ambassador Delenn. Babylon 5's official representative from the Minbari Federation, Ambassador Delenn is a member of the religious caste and part of the Grey Council. Years ago, Delenn witnessed the death of the Minbari leader Dukat and cast the deciding vote that led to the Earth-Minbari War. Delenn's true reasons for serving as a lowly ambassador on Babylon 5 are unclear, although her fascination with humans is well known. End file. Subject: Ambassador Jakar. Acting as Babylon 5's ambassador from the Narn regime, Jakar has an intense hatred for the Centauri, and Ambassador Londo in particular, due to their former brutal occupation and enslavement of the Narn homeworld. Jakar is a highly religious Narn and an avid student of the teachings of Jaquan. A cold, calculating strategist, Jakar takes pride in his abilities to turn every situation to his advantage. End file. Subject: Ambassador Londo Mollari. The station's delegate from the Centauri Republic, Ambassador Londo Mollari considers Babylon 5's mission to be a waste of time. Londo spends most of his time chasing females and frequenting the station's bars and casinos. Like many Centauri, Londo longs for the past and would do anything in order for his race to regain their former glory. Londo believes he saw his death in a dream and will die while strangling his bitter rival, Jakar. End file. Subject: Ambassador Kosh Naranek. Serving as the emissary from the Vorlon Empire, Ambassador Kosh Naranek is an enigmatic being. His appearance is concealed by an all-encompassing encounter suit, and he typically speaks in riddles. Kosh and his fellow Vorlons are an ancient race and played an important role in the defeat of the Shadows a millennium ago. As stated by Kosh, the Vorlons have little interest in the affairs of other races, and his objectives on Babylon 5 remain a mystery to everyone but himself. End file. Accessing file. Subject: Captain John Sheridan. Captain John Sheridan took over command of Babylon 5 in 2259 after the sudden recall of Commander Jeffrey Sinclair. Former commander of the Earth Alliance ship Agamemnon, Sheridan was a decorated veteran of the Earth-Minbari War. During the conflict, Sheridan earned Earth its only victory by destroying the Minbari flagship and earning him the nickname Star Killer. His appointment to Babylon 5 marks his most difficult and important assignment to date. End file. Accessing file. Subject: Lieutenant Warren Keffer. Lieutenant Warren Keffer is a highly trained combat pilot and leader of Babylon 5's Zeta Wing. After witnessing a shadow vessel in hyperspace during a mission, Keffer became obsessed with proving their existence. Lieutenant Keffer did manage to gather his evidence, but paid the ultimate price in the process. End file. Accessing file. Subject: Vir Koto. Vir Koto was appointed attaché to Centauri ambassador Londo Mollari in part due to the influence of his family. Although timid and subservient at first, Vir has proven himself time and time again to be a valuable asset to Londo. Vir has a great distrust of Shadow Envoy Mr. Morden and feels that Londo's current course of actions is destructive. End file. Accessing file. Subject: Lanier. Part of the Minbari religious caste, Lanier was raised in a monastery before being selected as the assistant to Ambassador Delenn. Lanier is completely loyal to Delenn, standing guard during her chrysalis transformation and subsequent dismissal from the Grey Council. A member of the Third Fane of Chudomo, Lanier has a strong desire to do what is right for his people. End file. Accessing file. Subject: Natoth. Natoth serves as aide to non-representative Jakar. Strong-willed like the ambassador, Natoth is loyal to her race and a valued ally to Jakar in his struggle to keep their people free from Centauri control. Natoth was on the Narn homeworld during the Centauri bombardment, and her whereabouts are currently unknown. End file. Accessing file. Subject: Lord Rifa. Lord Rifa is a representative of the Centauri government and an associate of Ambassador Londo Mollari. Following the death of Centauri Emperor Turhan, Rifa plotted the assassination of the Centauri Prime Minister, as well as the bombardment of the Narn homeworld using outlawed mass drivers. Rifa's ruthlessness is matched only by his thirst for power. End file. Accessing file. Subject: General Richard Franklin. Career Officer General Richard Franklin serves as commander of Earth Force Marines 365th Infantry Division. General Franklin is the father of Babylon 5's Chief Medical Officer Dr. Stephen Franklin, but he disagrees with his son's belief that all life is sacred regardless of which side they fight for. General Franklin recently used Babylon 5 as a staging ground to launch Operation Sudden Death, which was designed to overtake the rebel stronghold at Matok. End file. Accessing file. Subject: Dr. Everett Jacobs. Dr. Everett Jacobs served as Vice President Clark's personal physician at the time of President Santiago's death. Following Clark's inauguration, Dr. Jacobs fled to Babylon 5 with evidence suggesting that the former president's death was no accident. Pursued by Earth Force agents and briefly captured by a bounty hunter, Dr. Jacobs was rescued by Captain Sheridan and then hidden aboard Ambassador Kosh's ship to avoid detection. End file. Accessing file. Subject: Sebastian. Sebastian is an inquisitor used by the Vorlons to test the resolve and spirit of Ambassador Delenn. Alternating between interrogation and torture, Sebastian attempted to persuade Delenn to admit she was not prepared to lead the forces of light in the war to come. In the end, Delenn passed Sebastian's test. Before leaving Babylon 5, Sebastian confided that he was taken from London in the late 1800s by the Vorlons and is known in Earth's history as Jack the Ripper. End file. Accessing file. Subject: Drawl. A former teacher and friend of Delenn, Drawl took over as the protector of Epsilon 3 just before the previous Guardian died. Drawl merged with the massive computer complex located miles beneath the surface until the time was right for him to reveal the planet's secrets. His reappearance gives Babylon 5 and the universe another weapon in the coming war against the shadows. End file. Accessing file. Subject: Zach Allen. Sergeant Zach Allen works as one of the many security officers who maintain order on Babylon 5. Handpicked by Security Chief Michael Garibaldi to be his second-in-command, Zach is a natural leader and able to handle any dangerous situation he may come across. Zach was recruited by the Night Watch to monitor possible treasonous acts on the station. However, he disapproved of the organization's questionable methods. Zach demonstrated his loyalty to Garibaldi and Babylon 5 when he aided in defeating a planned coup by the Night Watch. Accessing file. Subject: Marcus Cole. A recent arrival on Babylon 5, Marcus Cole is a member of the Rangers, an elite group of humans and Minbari specially trained to fight the shadows. A strongly spiritual person, Marcus will fight to the end for any cause he believes in, no matter the odds. Marcus is highly skilled in hand-to-hand combat and an expert in wielding the Minbari fighting pike. It is not uncommon for Marcus to battle a room full of opponents and emerge victorious. Marcus has developed feelings for Commander Ivanova, however she has yet to show any signs of attraction toward him. End file. Accessing file. Subject: David Corwin. David Corwin acts as a technician on the CNC deck, working side by side with Captain Sheridan and Commander Ivanova. A loyal officer and able to work effectively under pressure, Corwin has proven himself repeatedly during the many crises that have arisen on the station. Corwin was recently promoted to the rank of lieutenant and remains a valued member of the Babylon 5 command staff. Accessing file. Subject: Alfred Bester. Alfred Bester is a level P-12 telepath whose frequent visits to Babylon 5 are a sure sign of trouble. Serving the Psi Corps as a Psi Cop, Bester will use any method he feels necessary to track down rogue telepaths, also known as blips. While Captain Sheridan and the rest of the Babylon 5 command staff must at times work with Bester, they know he cannot be trusted. Although Bester has pledged to fight with Babylon 5 against the shadows, his past actions have proven that he will only do what is in his own best interest. End file. Accessing file. Subject: Zathras. Very little is known about the strange creature named Zathras. First encountered by Commander Sinclair 2 years ago, Zathras recently reappeared as Drawl's aide during the mission to protect Station Babylon 4 from the shadows. Hard-working but easily confused, Zathras tends to speak in riddles and broken sentences. We are reasonably sure that wherever Zathras came from, he was asked to leave, repeatedly. Accessing file. Subject: Lita Alexander. A licensed telepath and frequent visitor to Babylon 5, Lita escaped from the Psi Corps following her first contact with the original Kosh. Lita traveled to Vorlon space where she was modified to carry a Vorlon consciousness. She later served as liaison to both Kosh and his successor before agreeing to return to the Psi Corps in a limited role. At one time a level P5 telepath, Lita's Vorlon-enhanced abilities far exceed her original skills. Even she doesn't know the limit of her new powers. End file. Accessing file. Subject: Cartagia. Nephew and successor of Emperor Turhan, Cartagia served as the self-indulgent and merciless leader of the Centauri people. Driven mad by power, Cartagia allowed the Shadows to set up bases on Centauri soil in exchange for a promise that he be elevated to godhood. In order to fulfill his insane quest, Cartagia was even prepared to sacrifice Centauri Prime to the Vorlons. In an effort to save his planet and people from destruction, Londo devised a plan to assassinate Cartagia and end his rule. Accessing file. Subject: Kosh 2. Sent as a replacement for the original Vorlon ambassador killed by the Shadows, Kosh 2 turned out to be much more belligerent than his predecessor. Given the escalation of the Shadow War, Kosh 2's presence on Babylon 5 was seen as a liability. When security was unable to remove Kosh 2 from the station, Captain Sheridan and Lita lured the Vorlon into a trap. Kosh 2 shed his encounter suit and attacked, threatening to destroy Babylon 5. However, the spirit of the original Kosh emerged from Sheridan's body and helped defeat the new Kosh. Accessing file. Subject: Neroon. A member of the Star Raiders clan and warrior caste, Elite Neroon was chosen to replace Delenn on the Grey Council before it was dissolved. During the Minbari Civil War, Neroon plotted with the warrior caste leader Shikiri to force the surrender of the religious caste. Witnessing Shikiri's disgrace in the Starfire Wheel and Delenn's willingness to die for her fellow Minbari, Neroon saved her life and converted to the religious caste. He sacrificed himself in the Starfire Wheel, restoring honor to the warrior caste and ending the conflict. Accessing file. Subject: Lorien. Lorien is an enigmatic being living deep beneath the surface of Zahadum. He is quite possibly the oldest being in the galaxy and was the first to gain sentience. Lorien's race watched over the development of the first ones as well as the Vorlons and Shadows. His presence is why the Shadows return to Zahadum after they are driven away. Lorien saved Captain Sheridan following his ordeal on Zahadum and again after the new Kosh attacked, giving Sheridan a renewed but limited lifespan. At the end of the Shadow War, Lorien traveled with the Shadows and the Vorlons beyond the rim of the galaxy. Accessing file. Subject: Elizabeth Lockley. Captain Elizabeth Lockley took command of Babylon 5 in 2262, having been personally selected by Interstellar Alliance President John Sheridan, with whom she was briefly married early in their careers. A veteran Earth Force officer, Lockley believes in the soldier's code of loyalty, duty, and honor. Lockley stood by EarthGov during the recent Civil War, stating that her responsibility was to respect the orders of her superiors and protect those under her command. Lockley can be diplomatic, but isn't afraid to get into a fight. Her military background, ability to speak her mind, and resourcefulness in a crisis make her an ideal choice to run the station. Accessing file. Subject: Byron. A level P-12 telepath, Byron was originally a Psycop and a student of Alfred Bester's. He fled the Psi Corps, however, after an incident where he was forced to kill a group of mundanes who were smuggling telepaths. Byron has since become a leader to the renegade telepaths in their struggle for freedom and tolerance. Pursued by Bester and the Psi Corps, Byron and his followers sought refuge on Babylon 5, where President Sheridan granted them permission to form a colony. Aided by Lita Alexander, with whom he has become romantically involved, Byron remains resolute in his goal to find a homeworld for his people. Accessing file. Subject: Talon. Talon is a resourceful Narn warrior and master swordsman who lives by a code of honor. Since first meeting President Sheridan during their imprisonment on a Stribe ship, Talon has become a frequent visitor to Babylon 5. Talon built a strong bond with Citizen Jakar as they offered each other wisdom and support in their endeavors. When Jakar left Babylon 5, he wisely chose Talon to succeed him as the Narn ambassador to the station. Accessing file. Subject: Minister Verini. A member of the Centauri royal court, Verini served as the Centauri minister until the sudden death of Emperor Cartagia. Verini was then promoted to the position of regent, ruling the Centauri people until a suitable replacement could be found for the emperor. Although Verini began behaving strangely, no one in the Centaurum questioned his orders, because to disobey the regent is a crime punishable by death. Verini died under mysterious circumstances, and his passing led to Londo Mollari ascending to the throne as Emperor of the Centauri Republic. Accessing file. Subject: Mac and Bo. When something on Babylon 5 breaks, a call goes out to technicians like Mac and Bo. Along with their fellow engineers, Mac and Bo are responsible for performing maintenance and repairs on the station and its operating systems. Unlike other assigned technicians, however, Mac and Bo are floaters, meaning they go wherever a problem arises and handle everything from fixing Isolab consoles to eliminating an infestation of crawlers. And while their work often goes unnoticed, Mac and Bo play an essential role in keeping Babylon 5 up and running.